Thank you, Henry, and I appreciate your inviting me to talk about our latest book, which is called Bringing in the Business Without Sounding Like a Salesperson, and co-authored, of course, by you, Henry, and Mark LeBlanc. So, and the question I'd like to ask is, what if bringing in the business had nothing to do with sales, or at least very little to do with sales? And really, what if all it was a matter of having conversations? And if we shifted that mindset, would that make an impact on the results for a professional? And professional service providers are really my perfect fit marketplace, and also a huge part of Mark's and Henry's markets. So when we got together to brainstorm this, what we found was when we're dealing with professional people, we hear it all the time. When we suggest that people bring in more business, they always say, but I don't want to sound salesy. I don't want to sound like a salesperson. And that became the subtitle. Thank you, Mark LeBlanc, because it's just a great title. By the way, in that scam that you were talking about before, Henry, and they'll have to call Henry to find out about the scam. If they ask me to change the cover and the title, I'm not doing it. So we love the cover. We love the title. So what if it was just a matter of having conversations? So a lot of the meat of this book is a result of conversations that is Mark's intellectual property. There are four main conversations that people would have. And the four are, the first conversation is the attraction phase conversation. And that's simply learning to have something good to say when someone asks you the important question, what do you do? So you meet somebody at an event, or you may be out socially. You could be addressing an audience either in general, or you could be addressing an audience that you put together. But when someone asks you, what do you do? It has been Mark LeBlanc's belief for a long time that the most important piece of marketing that you can have is a great answer to that question. And Mark talks about a defining statement. We talk about that in the book. Having a defining statement, which is a good answer to that question, that's the attraction phase. And the attraction phase is designed to get people to raise their hand, so to speak, and have interest in what it is that you do. So it's what you do and who you do it for. And that's either going to have interest to the person you're speaking to, or it's not. And that's fine. It's fine for them not to be interested, because it sifts, it weeds out the people that you ought not be talking to. But it definitely hooks the people that are your fit, that are the people you want to be talking to based on what it is you do for people. And that would lead to the person asking for a meeting of some kind. It could be a coffee talk. It could be an initial meeting to see how what you do fits what they're looking for, or what problem they're looking to solve. So that would lead it to the second conversation, which Mark calls the meaningful conversation. And I have taken that and delved deeper and used my Goldman enrollment process to design a format for the meaningful conversation, which helps professionals focus on the client or the prospective client and not themselves. So one of the issues, professionals, A, don't want to sound salesy, and B, they've been taught to talk about themselves, talk about what it is they do, and talk about their fee and how it's going to help the prospective client. But they don't focus on what does the prospective client really, really want. And what the Goldman enrollment process does is shift that conversation over to the prospective client. So there's 5 distinct parts to the Goldman enrollment process. I'll just briefly go through them. The first is the background of relationship. There's got to be some kind of relationship. There's got to be a rapport, or nothing else will move further. Doesn't have to be long and drawn out. You don't have to become best friends. You don't have to know them for years and years. It could be as simple as asking a question: what was it that we said when we met? What was it that was mentioned that had you want to meet today? And they'll answer. And if you want further clarification, you can ask for further clarification. It's never a bad idea to ask for further clarification. It's always a good idea, in fact. So they'll tell you that, and that's enough to establish the background of relationship. It's interesting when I deal with business owners and people who are strong business owners, people who are high D's on the DISC model, they'll often say, I'll walk in and they'll say, okay, what do you got? And for most salespeople or most people in that position, if they start to explain what they've got, they're in trouble. So when someone says to me, what do you have, or what do you got? I'll say, I've got a couple of questions. My first question is, what was it that we talked about that had you want to meet today? And then the second question is, which leads to the conversation for possibility, which is the second piece of the enrollment process. And it's the most important piece of the enrollment process. It literally describes and defines what is the possibility that your product or service could be for that prospective client and his life or her life. And so the second question I'll ask is, what would you want to get out of a process or a program or a relationship or whatever it is that you provide for people? And they will answer. And I always ask for clarification. So in describing the possibility of what your program or what your product or what your service could do for a prospective client, the key factor is it has to come out of the prospective client's mouth. It cannot come out of your mouth. You can't tell them what all the things you're going to do. You want to ask the kind of questions that elicits what they want. And so if I ask, what would you want to get out of a coaching program? My main product that I'm looking to use to solve someone's issue is a coaching program, usually a 3 to 6 month program. And my question will be, let's say you did that. Let's say you engaged me. Why would you do it? What do you want to get out of that program? And they will answer. And I'll ask a clarifying question. I'll ask them to give a deeper meaning to what they just said. They might want to be more organized. I'll ask, when you say organized, how do you mean organized? Because organization can mean different things to different people. And then I continue to ask what else until they say that's about it, until their list is complete. And if that whole process takes a half an hour, so be it. I do not end that conversation because, again, I'll repeat, it's the most important piece of the conversation, of the whole meaningful conversation. If you have questions about that, we'll take it in the Q&A. The next phase, after they say that's about it, the next phase or conversation I'll have in the enrollment process is a conversation for value. Again, it has to come out of the prospective client's mouth, but I'll ask, what would be the value if we made all of those things on the list? I'll repeat the list to them, and then I'll say, if I made all of those things come true, if we achieved all of those items, what would the value of that be? They're going to say, I don't know. They're going to say something vague. They'll say it means a lot. And what you want to do without browbeating or without pressure is you want to get them to give you a number, what the value would be. And sometimes that number is going to astound you. You'd fall off your chair. I've done that a couple of times. I've almost literally fallen off my chair when they gave me a number of what the value would be. It's especially useful when it comes time down the road when you're going to discuss your fee, when you can have your fee be a small percentage of what their value is. It's easier to, in the agreement phase, it's much easier to seal the deal. So the conversation for possibility and the conversation for value both come out of the prospective client's mouth. And then the fourth area is the conversation for opportunity. And finally, this is where you, the professional, gets to talk about your program, gets to talk about what you do, and you get to do it in a way that hopefully fits the parameters or the needs of what they said they wanted. If you can tailor that section to 12 to 15 minutes, it's better. You don't have to spill all your beans, but you want to spill enough of the beans that match what they want. And then the fifth area, which spills over into the third conversation, the fifth area is the conversation for action, which actually goes right into the decision phase. And the decision phase is you're looking for someone to say yes, an enthusiastic yes, or a kind no. They may not want to engage you, or yes, but we have to make a different time frame. We have to do it at a later date for some reason.
David, that's a great summary. Thank you so much. Let's go to Q&A, and I'm going to go to the anybody. You can raise your hand, you can put it into chat, and it's either a question about this enrollment process, or it's about planning a book, preparing a book, promoting a book. It's an open floor on questions right now. And so would anybody like to start us off with a question in this Q&A?
Alice.
Julian.
Yeah, thank you for what you shared with us, by the way. So I'm curious about, you've gone through the series of conversations. How do you handle when people say, I can really see how it would make a difference if we work together. I want to think about it.
Well, why don't we have first David and then Mark weigh in on that. David, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. So when someone, I learned this from Mark LeBlanc, actually, so I could defer to him, but I will just give one sentence of it. When someone says, I want to think about it, they've actually identified themselves as a thinker mindset. And so very often, there's nothing you're going to do that's going to shift that. But what it means is you haven't given enough information. And so the nicest thing I think that one can say is, in your thinking process, what additional information do you need from me in order for you to make a good decision?
Mark?
Thank you, David. You teed me up perfectly. And then I think the second question to ask is, what time frame, after I've gotten you some more information, and it could be more information, it could be maybe somebody wants to talk with one or two people that I've worked with. But then my second question is always, what's your time frame for making a decision? In the next week, in the next 30 days, and then the follow-on question to that is, just so that we're clear, should I anticipate that you will circle back with me, or is it okay if I reach out to you? And so that really helps sort of prevent good prospects from going into the black hole, as well as ghosting you.
Very good. Okay. Another question. Okay, I'm going to start asking questions. If you
I was going to say.
Okay, follow-up question.
Hey, I'm going to take advantage. If you've got people that, they've got information to share, I'll step up. So do you do any kind of advanced sending of materials? Do you find that makes a difference in your effectiveness rate of if they've got a little bit like an overview, they've got a sense of who you are before they come in to these series of conversations into this phase?
I'll take it first. We used to not send anything. And typically I don't send anything before that first attraction phase conversation. Um, and then I asked them after that, I said, if you want more information, I'm kind of general in answers today, but if you'd like a very specific conversation, I call that a meaningful conversation. We can schedule that. And after that conversation, I'll send you everything we talked about in writing, so you have in writing. We've created a piece that is in that bridge, which is just the indie books way, which is, it's not like the Mandalorian is the way, but it's 10 philosophies that we have about all this, and it's very colorful and graphic, and we can send it because some people we know just want to get something to see. It's premature though to start giving them some sort of proposal at that point.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So that's our thought. Mark and David, your thoughts?
What I will do, and it varies, there's no one connect the dots path that fits all. And I step back and I rely on what I call degree of knowingness. Because when I'm having a conversation, somebody has either A, been in an audience and has heard me speak, has a high degree of knowingness, or B, has been referred to me by someone who has a high degree of knowingness. I get very few people who reach out to me cold. Many times we will, my assistant Kylie or I will attach a 4-page document that is about, it's titled About Mark LeBlanc. And that just gives somebody a window into my world. There are times I will also refer somebody. I had a doctor reach out to me last weekend, and he was referred to me. And I responded and I just said, look forward to setting up a conversation, hearing your story. On the off chance you are open to previewing a presentation, I have a 45-minute speech on my website on how to have your best year ever, because I knew that this person had not heard me speak. So I said, if you have time for it, great, grab a box of popcorn and knock yourself out. And I will have my assistant Kylie reach out to you on Monday or whatever it is. So it's sort of a judgment call depending upon how somebody has come to me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I would like to switch topics, but I really appreciate all of this. David, I've had the opportunity to hear you speak a little bit before, so I feel like this is a great reminder, and there's lots of good books already. If you haven't gotten your indie books that cover some of this very information. I'm like a walking billboard. But I actually wanted to ask a little bit around your identity as a book author. And this is, it's kind of maybe it's a personal question, but as I'm in the editing phase of this book, and the book is kind of one component, my focus is one component of what I do for work. And I want to continue to do the other parts of what I do as well. And so as I'm thinking about the marketing efforts, and I'm thinking about how do you bridge or kind of create an identity as you're going forward with your book that allows for these other parts of what you do as well. So that when people go on my website or look at me on LinkedIn, they are not like, well, wait, she does the endurance leader, but she's also helping, CEOs select their executives. Like, how, for those of you who've been in this space, tips you might have around how you build that broad brand identity.
I'm not sure that I can answer the question exactly the way you asked it, but I can tell you what the book has done for me. and it's my second book.
Great.
And as a coach, and I've been coaching for 35 years, so other coaches will ask me, how important is certification? And I think my stock answer to anything like that, or how important is it to write a book? Anything that makes you walk down the street a little taller, a little better, a little more swag, not in an arrogant way, but just it shifts the conversation about who you are in the marketplace. And if you're dealing with C-suite people, they love the person who wrote the book. Am I an expert on sales? I don't know that I'm an expert on sales. I'm pretty good at having a conversation. In fact, I wrote a book about it, and I'm the guy who wrote a book about it. So that's what the book does for me. It's also a relatively expensive business card, because that's what I'm using it for in my marketing effort. Is it going to be a bestseller? Probably not. I'm okay if it is a bestseller, but really my commitment to these two guys is I'm going to put it in the hands of 200 influential people who are decision makers, heads of law firms, heads of financial firms, heads of accounting firms. That process has already started. And not necessarily for them, but they all have something in common. And I'm coming in for a landing, Henry. What they have in common is they have younger people in their firms who need to learn how to do this, and they don't want to spend the time or the effort to teach them themselves, so they can hire me.
Thanks, Dave.
Partially.
I'll jump in. So, because I'm an authority on marketing with a book and a speech that you're proud of. This is my 20th book, and we're looking at all different nuances of it. But the basic, what I call the Magnificent Seven, Ann, is number one, do small scale seminars, either virtual like we're doing or in person, which we're getting back to. And Mark, you might comment that he has gone virtual for years, is getting back to live. The time has come. So that's the first thing you do. We're demonstrating everything we teach. This is a demonstration of what we want you to do. I want you to do a monthly Q&A with no expectations that there's sales and we're closing people or anything like that. The expectation is to be generously helpful. And the more helpful you are, the luckier you get in marketing. The second thing is you want to get on people's stages. You want to be invited on their podcasts and their Q&As and their webinars and all this, and live at events. And Ann, you're on my stage in Chicago, and Craig's going to be there and others. Craig Louder. Didn't want to frighten you, Craig, that I booked you as a speaker and you forgot about it. The third thing is getting published, and I recommend LinkedIn newsletters, chopping up your content, but getting other people to write about you. 4 and 5 are volunteer with a target-rich association. So that means you have a niche and you know it, and then go attend meetings and network at the niche. 6, do YouTube videos. Devin recorded this. Sorry, Devin. I was supposed to record this. That's why I have a great producer in Devin who picked up the ball and recorded this, because we post these and they're the gift that keeps giving, your videos. And then 7th is, do you have enough knowledge and you have information that you could share that people would actually pay to be in an online with you or a 2-day forum? Blatant commercial, we do a $1,000 retreat 3 times a year for authors. We're doing it on you gotta look at the big calendar, 20th, 21st. Make you a deal. Anybody who is listening to this, if you contact me, if we have a spot, I will comp you into that to be helpful to your journey. So those are the 7 that you do in combination. We also do some publicity, we do some sponsorship, we do some other things, but we do the Magnificent 7 right every month. And that's how you have an authority position, and that's what you want. The next thing is an authority is not one and done. David mentioned this is his second book. Craig and I have done 2 books together. Mark and I believe it's up to 5 books together we've done, Mark. And not to put words into Mark's mouth, I'll turn the microphone to him, but we discovered something when he has an underground bestseller with over 80,000 books out there. And then he had another one, which is, his signature book he's so proud of, and the audio version, just amazing. But when we started to do book 3, 4, 5, the cumulative effect when he would speak, and we had the joke about when people say, about reading your book. If you have 1 book, that's great. If you have 2 books, that's magic, because when people say, I'd like to read your book, Mark, you can say, which one? Now we can say there's 5. Which one would you like to read? And we also are generous in sending those books out at no cost to people. Craig Lauder, he's amazing because he didn't worry about selling his book, but he did worry about giving it away, and credits it with over $1 million in revenue for doing that strategy over a 5 to 10 year period. So these are some of the possibilities. Mark, did you want to add anything, please?
Dr. Ann, could you please restate the question?
I can sure try.
Because because I think I heard a different question, and so I just want to make sure that I answer what you're looking for.
Thank you. And I appreciate the answers that have already been responded to. And I don't want to take all the time. This one doesn't necessarily apply to everyone, but ensuring that I continue with kind of the broad, I identify myself in a broader way than just the topic that my book is about. And so how to create that brand identity that allows for the encompassing of all of who I am, and not kind of just this person who wrote The Endurance Leader and I have that target market.
Well, first, I live in a world of 2 or more right answers. So it's not my way or the highway. There was a time in my career when I was more broad. In fact, a turning point in the evolution of my career was when I had 5 different topics or presentations, and no one was interested. It was like going to the marketplace with too broad a scope resulted in really very little. And one day I woke up and I thought, if I could do growing your business 50 times a year at my then fee of $2,000 a pop, I'd be happier than a pig in mud. And I put everything else kind of in the background, and I made growing your business my primary or singular outcome. It's the dream of everybody that I work with or stand in front of, and I became the growing your business guy. That became my lead dog, or my, it's like the more I do growing your business, the more it opens me up to all of the other things that I do. And so for me, a right answer was someone either hires me to do growing your business or not. And then if they get into my orbit from that perspective, I don't want them to decide between growing your business or one of the other 4, 5, or 6 things that I do. If they do growing your business first, then it opens them up, or it becomes a gateway after we have the elements of respect, honor, and trust, and we're down the road. Then I've got other tricks and outcomes and results that I can deliver on in my back pocket. So for me, that's been a right answer, but that doesn't mean it's my way or the highway. But I'm the growing. What I would ask you and anybody else is, what for you is growing your business to me? And then if you can build around that, I think that you will have more opportunities to do everything that you do.
And I was going to step in. I'm relatively new to this group, but I have kind of multiple things that happen in the background, and the book is just going to be an add-on to all of those other things. And the way I kind of worked with my business coach through all of it is that I have this overall umbrella that says my role in this world is to change the weight of the world. And so the clinic is changing the weight of my community. and my consulting is changing the way to the workplace. And then this book is really just the lead into changing that place in the workplace, but it doesn't detract from the clinic and the other things that I'm doing. But they all fall under the heading of like, they all funnel to the same mission, just in different paths. And so that's kind of the way I've always looked at it. And when something comes up and I go, oh, that really doesn't fit under the heading, that's a distraction to me. But I don't really want to be just the book author. It's really, to me, the book is a piece of what I do that lends credibility to one or more of those paths. There might be one or more books for each path at some point, but yeah, kind of having the overall heading has been really important to me.
Thanks, Courtney. I want to go to Tom's question, and Devin, who's is off camera today, but can answer. He wanted to know about the pros, cons of providing an audiobook. What's the range of cost to provide an audiobook? What's the process to create an audiobook? Devin, would you like to field that, please?
Thank you. So we are very pro audiobook. We have seen it be a huge growth area in our industry, especially if your target is, 45 and under. They like to listen to books on their commute, on their walks, things like that. They're very busy. So it's a very effective way for them to read. So I would say it's definitely worth looking into and considering as an option. For costs, it's going to vary a lot on a few things. So one, the biggest question is, do you want to be the narrator of the book yourself, or do you want to use a professional narrator? We often recommend going with the professional narrators because overall it will actually save you money and time, most especially. For some people, though, they very much want to do their own recordings. So if you want to go down that path, things you'll need are quality equipment. So a really good microphone, editing software, all of that if you're going to do it yourself, or you have to hire a professional studio and a professional sound engineer to help you. So that can range a couple $1,000s by the end of it, just depending on how many sessions you have to have, things like that. Versus, there are these networks of professional audiobook narrators, and they charge by the hour. Finished recorded hour is how they do their fee structure. So if your book is going to be 5 or 6 hours long, figure you're probably spending $100 to $200 per finished hour to have a professional do it. So you can get in for, a more affordable price that way. Plus, they have all the expertise in the editing. They know Audible's requirements because they are very strict on how the files have to be prepared and submitted. They have all of that built into the price for you. So it often is a better cost saver for you.
Thanks, Devin. Sorry you've got technical difficulties today and we can't actually see you, though we get that nice portrait of you. One of our authors, bestseller, New York Times bestselling author, and has been on PBS talking about her book, and thought, well, I'm going to record the book. I speak professionally, so this would be good. And she said it was the worst 2 days of her life. The 2 days it took, and very expensive, 2 days in a studio. Now, Mark LeBlanc, past president of the National Speakers Association, over 1,000 presentations on growing your business. It would be malpractice if Mark didn't read his book, Never Be the Same. So you just have to weigh where you are in your career. And Mark runs a speaking business. Now I run a book business. I do not record my books. I go the path Devin talked about and hire somebody. Some of my books are in Chinese. I wonder who the Chinese person is. I'd like to meet them that's reading my book over there. But as Devin talked about sales, If you know the hockey stick chart, you know, where the chart starts low and then takes off, that's what Audible sales are doing. It's just taking over the industry. And I think we need to change our language that I listened to a book. It's just another way you read a book. Vicky, my wife, and who's in the business, loves Audible books. And I think she just spent 20 some hours with Barbara Streisand, who read that book. Now, Barbara Streisand's celebrity. She has to read her book. That's what people are paying for. You wanted to hear that person. But for us, I really recommend getting the pro to read it for you. Any other questions? I see we're getting close to the wrap-up time, when I'm going to give you the rest of your day back. You know, even though the book says without sounding like a salesperson, I want you to know, in our company, and this, sales is not a dirty word for us. You know, we talk about a sales pipeline, we talk about this, but I know David works with a lot of attorneys, and I had an attorney walk out of my workshop once because I used the word sales. Some people are so adamant against this salesperson, or, you know, where they're seeing somebody, you know, with a white belt and white shoes, and it's after Labor Day. And what do I have to do to get you into a leadership training program today, Dr. Ann? You know, it's like that. That's the mentality we have. You know, Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, and Tommy Boy, and all these other films that have really made fun of the bad salesperson. So just wanted to plant that, because like my buddy Craig Lauder, co-author, is a sales expert. So many people outside of the professions have no problem with it and see it as an honorable profession. But the professionals do not. And they don't want to be painted with that, you know, bad salesperson brush. So there you have that. Craig?
Yeah, I was just going to share, you and I were very careful, because we're dealing with trusted advisors in our latest book, about not referring to sales because of the movies that you mentioned earlier, and also the letters are after some people's names. So we can get by sometimes with business development. We can get by with the term lead conversion, but there's no dispute that the clients that we all want to acquire, the right fit ones, are all interested in new client acquisition. So whether you call it new client acquisition, business development, or sales, it's absolutely the same thing.
Thanks, Craig. When I speak, I'm called a business development expert. That's what other people label me as, in consulting, professional services, when I speak to these groups. So that is a term that's out there. Okay. Great wrap up on that. Good to see everybody. So we do these monthly, and you're welcome to come by anytime. We believe we're building a community here, and we'd really like you to take advantage of that. So asking questions, and I did something wrong today, and it's with Jelaine. So I'm going to ask Jelaine to put on her mic. I didn't ask you to give me like 5 to 7 words of what you do. So Jelaine, what do you do?
Well, hi. Thank you for asking. I'm a high performance coach, and I specialize in working with business execs that are committed to producing world-class results, but in a way where they stay true to their core values.
Nice, thank you. So there's that higher level. So we're going to be back. We're usually on the first Tuesday of the month, but next month is July, and that first week of July, a lot of us take off and do things. So we're going to be here on the 9th of July, 10 a.m. Pacific, noon Central, 1 Eastern. I don't have it in front of me. Devin, do you know who our guest is and what our topic is next month? Have we announced that?
We probably need to reconfirm with her.
Okay, so we'll announce it. Stay tuned for an announcement on that. Until then, we'll give you the rest of your day back. Thank you for spending some of your day with us. We appreciate you. And so until next time, we'll see you again.